All right, I want to welcome everyone and turn this session directly over to Ms. Catherine St. Clair, who's the Management and Program Analyst with Student Service, and let her provide the presentation. Welcome, Catherine.
Welcome. Good afternoon and welcome. Before we begin, I would like to thank Ms. Carol Bush at FISB, as well as Mark Wolf and the others at RITAC for hosting today's webinar. We really appreciate it. My name, as Mark mentioned, is Catherine St. Clair, and I'm at the U.S. Department of Education. Today's webinar, which will provide an introduction to the student service programs at the U.S. Department of Education, is presented in support of the Department of Education and Department of Health and Human Services collaboration in support of disconnected youth. In an upcoming slide, we will also provide a little bit of background on this important collaboration. We are so happy that you are able to join us today. This slide gives you a sense of today's agenda. We are aiming for an approximately 45-minute presentation to allow plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. We'll start with a quick overview of the Department of Education, Department of Health and Human Services collaboration, and also provide some background information on the Office of Post-Secondary Education and Student Service Office. We'll then provide overviews of the student service administered pre-college as well as undergraduate and graduate programs. Finally, and importantly, we'll provide information on how to locate student service projects in your area and help you to start to brainstorm collaboration and partnership opportunities. I would like to introduce today's presenters, and then I will turn it over to Dr. Linda Bird-Johnson, Senior Director of Student Service, for some brief words of welcome. As I mentioned before, my name is Catherine St. Clair, and I work in the Student Service Office of the Office of Post-Secondary Education at the U.S. Department of Education. I am joined today by my student service colleagues, Tamika Hawley, Brandon Weber, and Tanisha Hamblin-Johnson, who will all be presenting in today's webinar. I would also like to acknowledge Mr. James Davis and the other members of the Student Service Leadership Team who are joining us today. And without further ado, Dr. Linda Bird-Johnson, Senior Director of Student Service.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending upon what part of the country you are. Thank you so much for tuning in for this webinar to learn about the programs administered by the Student Service Division. As you will learn today, they include the TRIO Talent Search Program, Gear Up, Child Care Access Means Parents in School Program, and a few other smaller programs that have a focus on the collegiate community. We are so proud to be partnering with HHS so that we empower our grantees and grantees funded under HHS with information that will be a benefit to the disconnected students that are served by both of our prospective agencies. I want to thank all of you that may have participated early on when SSS grantees had the privilege to learn from our HHS grantees about the different programs, and we have received many positive comments about the presentation that was made by our colleagues, so we want to thank you for that. I feel especially blessed to know that today you're going to hear information from some well-versed student service staff members. They have been around for a little while and they know the programs really well, and having some of the leadership team here later this afternoon to help answer any of your questions. But I would go as far to say that I believe that our presenters will be able to fit that bill all alone. Again, I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to thank everybody that had hand in making this happen, and shout out to my colleague that we have been working really closely with, and that is Carol and Debbie in the headquarters office here in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. On November 23rd of 2015, the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services announced an interagency collaboration in support of disconnected youth. In April of 2016, a partnership welcome meeting was held with representatives from both agencies, and a series of activities were planned to meet the goals of the partnership, which focus on collaboration to yield more educational opportunities and other supports for disconnected youth. One of those planned activities was this webinar, providing grantees and staff of the Family and Youth Services Bureau with information on the student service administered programs. Toward that end, we have 3 primary goals for our webinar today. We hope first that you will feel like you learned something about the student service administered programs. Next, we hope you feel informed on how to locate student service grants that might be operating in your local area to begin to explore collaboration possibilities. Last, and most importantly, we hope you feel empowered with additional information and resources which will help to support your continued work to serve disconnected students. Before we dive into details on the various student service administered programs, I wanted to give you a little background to let you know where we're situated within the U.S. Department of Education. Student Service is a division of the Office of Post-Secondary Education within the U.S. Department of Education. OPE, as we call the Office of Post-Secondary Education, works via policy, accreditation, and grant-making divisions to increase college completion rates for all students. In total, OPE administers over 60 programs that all seek to increase access and success in quality educational programs. Student Service, which is housed within the Higher Education Programs Division of OPE, administers programs aimed at supporting all students in reaching their educational goals, especially low-income students, first-generation college students, students with disabilities, and other disconnected students. Student service programs serve participants ranging from middle school to graduate level education. Student service has a broad reach. In total, we administer over 3,000 grants, and those grants serve more than 1.3 million students each year. Today you will learn more about the programs administered by Student Service. These programs are the Federal TRIO programs, which are actually a suite of programs, Gear Up, the Child Care Access Means Parents in School program, and the Graduate Assistance in Areas of National Need program. Before I turn it over to my colleague Tamika Hawley, who will provide information on the pre-college programs, I wanted to note that we will be moving quickly through today's slides, providing just an overview of each student service administered program. Please feel free to use these slides as a future resource, however, downloading them per the instructions given earlier by RITAC. Also, stay tuned because in the days ahead you will be receiving via email an Introduction to Student Service fact sheet, which will be another reference guide for these programs. With that, I would like to introduce my colleague, Ms. Tamika Hawley, who will provide information on the Student Service pre-college program.
Thanks, Catherine. Good afternoon, all. So I'm going to talk to you today about the pre-college programs that we administer here in Student Service. So this is a collection of programs that gives students the opportunity to start a pipeline of education. These are programs that they can enter in as young as middle school and continue all the way through their postgraduate career. So the first program we're going to discuss is Gear Up. So here are the mission and objectives of Gear Up, and the focus of this program is to support low-income middle and high school students and prepare them for post-secondary education. There are 2 different types of Gear Up grantees. There are state grants and partnership grants. So just so you'll have an idea of where you may be able to find Gear Up in your community. The primary difference between the two is that the state grants will be designated by the governor, and there are a few different types of structures of Gear Up programs. And then partnership grantees will be found at local agencies, local educational agencies, or institutions of higher education. So these are the services that are required for state applicants. And if you connect your participants to a state Gear Up project, then these are the services that they are guaranteed to receive. Gear Up also has several permissible services, and these services may be offered by a project, and if you were looking for these services specifically, you might have to work with Gear Up projects in your area to find who is providing them. So please note that due to our time constraints, we do have all of our services listed here for you, and I'm not going to read all of them to you. But as Catherine said, please do refer back to the slideshow as a quick reference for each of our programs. So partnership applicants also have several required services. So these are the services that participants are guaranteed to receive. And these are the permissible services that may be provided. This slide here is a list that provides resources for you. In the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 694, you'll be able to find a full list of activities and services. And if you'd like additional Gear Up information, please visit the website provided here. And Gear Up will next compete in fiscal year 2017. So the next program we're going to discuss is Talent Search. And this is the first of the original Federal TRIO programs. So this is the goal of Talent Search, which with all of our programs is to help disadvantaged participants enter in and hopefully complete post-secondary education. This is a list of the eligibility requirements for participants. So please note that projects may have additional criteria to determine which participants they will actually serve. And if you have any participants in your program that do meet these basic eligibility criteria, then you might want to connect them to Talent Search. And please note that one of the eligibility requirements is age-based, and it says that if there's a participant that's older than 27, they can be served if there's no Educational Opportunity Centers program, and we will discuss Educational Opportunity Centers later. So these are the required services for Talent Search. These are the services that all Talent Search participants, all Talent Search projects must provide. They focus on secondary school completion, college admission, financing post-secondary educational, and general financial literacy for participants and parents. And this transitions us into the permissible services. So these services may focus on particular populations, and these projects also may reach out to schools and families as well. So these are the organizations that are eligible to house Talent Search projects, so you have an idea where to look when trying to locate them in your area. And this is a resource page for you for Talent Search. Important regulations, the website, and when it will compete next. The next program we're going to discuss is the Upward Bound program, which is actually a collection of 3 separate programs. And this is the second of the original TRIO programs. So we're going to discuss Classic Upward Bound and Upward Bound Math Science together. So these 2 programs are more alike than different. Upward Bound Math Science does have a few additional components to give it a focus on STEM education. So the Upward Bound program is an intensive program that serves a smaller group of participants, but the goal is the same, to help them complete secondary education, enroll in, and complete post-secondary education. The same is true of Upward Bound Math Science. That program just has a STEM focus. So these are the eligibility requirements for Upward Bound participants. Again, do keep in mind that specific projects may have additional admission criteria. So these are the required services. These are the services that your participants, if you connect them to Upward Bound, are guaranteed to receive. These services focus on tutoring and secondary school support, as well as entry into and completion of post-secondary education. So these are the permissible services for Upward Bound and Upward Bound Math Science. And these services, I will take the time to mention, are a little more fun, I'd say. These are opportunities for cultural experiences, campus tours, and things that students may not be able to access otherwise. And work study does give them the opportunity to make money. So the structure of Upward Bound and Upward Bound Math Science is very unique. There is an academic year component which supports participants through the school year, and then there is a summer component which is usually 6 weeks in length, where they potentially have the option to be housed on campus. Upward Bound also has a bridge component, which is a transitional phase after participants graduate high school and then move into post-secondary education. They can take classes on campus and potentially reside on campus as well. So the main difference between Upward Bound and Upward Bound Math Science is that STEM focus. So these are the additional services that participants will receive if they participate in Upward Bound Math Science. This is another page of resources for you with the websites for Upward Bound and Upward Bound Math Science. The next program we're going to discuss is Veterans Upward Bound. So it is the third Upward Bound program, but it is slightly different from the other two. Veterans Upward Bound serves an adult population, and its purpose is to assist veterans in completing secondary education if needed, entering into and completing post-secondary education. Since it does serve an adult population, it's much more flexible, so there are only permissible services for Veterans Upward Bound. So if you are interested in any of these services specifically, and there's a VUB in your area, you would have to get connected with them and see what services they actually provide. One of the excellent services that VUB can provide is financial literacy. So this is another resource page for you where you can find more information on Veterans Upward Bound. And our next and final program, final pre-college program, is Educational Opportunity Centers. This is another program that serves an adult population. So the purpose of Educational Opportunity Centers, or EOC, is to help adults complete a secondary school program and enter into post-secondary education. Working with an adult population, there are going to be more life skills and different focuses that EOC has. It is certainly centered around education, but there are other services that we provide as well. So this is a list of who's eligible to receive an EOC grant so that you can find them in your community. And this has the eligibility requirements for the participants. And I'd just like to note that generally participants are supposed to be 19 years or older, but in the event that you would like them to receive these services that are available and there's no talent search in your area, you can refer students to EOC. So this is the list of permissible services. Again, EOC does not have any required services. So this is about enrollment in secondary school if there are participants who have not completed high school. There is post-secondary education guidance, and there are important life skills that participants can learn at EOC. And this is the page of EOC resources. So please do, if you'd like any more information about the pre-college programs, visit the website and read through the fact sheet that you're going to receive from us. And please do keep a copy of the slideshow as a reference guide. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Brandon Weber, who's going to discuss our undergraduate and graduate programs with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamika. Good morning or good afternoon. This is Brandon Weber, and I'll be discussing the undergraduate and graduate program. The Student Service Undergraduate and Graduate Program is comprised of one of the programs I'm speaking about specifically is the Student Support Services, or SSS program. It is one of 8 TRIO programs that was created to help address and close the achievement gap. Through a grant competition, funds are awarded to 2-year and 4-year post-secondary grantee institutions of higher education to provide opportunities for academic development, assist students with basic college requirements, persistence, and to ultimately motivate students towards the successful completion of their post-secondary education. On the slide, you'll find what exactly is the Student Support Services, which I gave a brief overview of earlier. Eligibility requirements to actually receive a grant. You must be an institution of higher education or a combination of institutions of higher education, as is the case for many of the programs that we will discuss later in the presentation. Who is actually eligible to participate? So you must be a student and have the following criterion to be applicable in order to participate in the Student Support Services program. The services and activities that are provided are listed on the slide, but these also can provide individualized counseling for personal career and academic information, activities and instruction that are designed to acquaint students with career options, and or exposure to cultural events and academic programs not usually available. What you might find interesting is that there is an allowance for students to secure temporary housing during breaks if they are homeless youth and or students who are in the foster care or aging out of the foster care system. And we'll also discuss more about that provision a little bit later in the presentation. On this slide, you'll find a lot of the program resources, as with all of our programs, that list anything from permissible services and activities to some specific definitions, as well as what you'll find most useful is the SSS website, and the SSS competition is slated to be held in FY 2020. Next, we'll talk about the Child Care Access Means Parents in Schools program, or CCAMPIS as it's affectionately known. The 1998 Amendment to the Higher Education Act of 1965 also authorized this program to assist institutions in providing campus-based child care services for low-income student parents. This program supports the participation of low-income parents in post-secondary education through the provision of campus-based child care services. What is the SSS? What is the CCAMPIS program? Funds are used to support or establish campus-based child care programs primarily serving the needs of low-income students enrolled in institutions of higher education. Grants may be used for before and after school services. In addition, they may be used to serve the child care needs of the community served by that institution. This slide lists out the eligibility requirements for our CCAMPIS grantees. As you see, they must be an institution of higher education for the preceding fiscal year, and they should equal $350,000 or more in federal Pell Grants awarded to students. This slide lists out the services and or activities that a CCAMPIS Child Care Grant Program can provide. And again, what you will find most useful is the CCAMPIS website, which lists in detail a little bit more information about that particular program. And we expect this grant competition to occur somewhere in FY 2017. The Ronald E. McNair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement Program, also known as MCNAIR. This is a program that would allow participants to enroll in graduate programs and then track their progress through the successful completion of an advanced degree. The goal, of course, is to increase the attainment of PhD degrees by students who are underrepresented in segments of society. As we talked about earlier, in order to receive a grant, you must be an institution of higher education or a combination of institutions of higher education. Eligibility requirements for the MCNAIR program, as you see, there are quite a few. So at your leisure, please feel free to go and look at several of these criteria, which can be found in the Code of Federal Regulations at 647.3. What types of services and or activities are provided? As you see, there are a few listed here, but they may also deal with education or counseling services designed to improve financial and economic literacy of students, mentoring programs involving faculty members at those institutions of higher education, and or expose those students to cultural events and academic programs not usually available to disadvantaged students. On this page, of course, you can see the program website and also any other activities or services that are permissible. And this program is slated to compete in FY 2017 as well. Graduate assistance in areas of national need. This is also affectionately known as the GAN program. The GAN program provides fellowships through academic departments and programs of institutions of higher education to assist graduate students with excellent records who demonstrate financial need and a plan to pursue the highest degree available in their course study at the institution in a field designated as an area of national need. Grants are awarded to programs and institutions to sustain and enhance the capacity for teaching and research in areas of national need. Like MCNAIR, there are several different eligibility requirements in order to receive this grant. So at your leisure, please feel free to go back and peruse those later. And on this page, you will also find, as with all the other programs, some additional program resources for you. You can look at the GAN website, as well as this competition is slated to compete in FY 2018. So now that you've gotten a review of the undergraduate and graduate programs, I will turn it over to my colleague, Tanisha Hamlin-Johnson, who will discuss how to locate services in your area, as well as potential collaborative ideas within this partnership.
Thank you, Brandon. Good afternoon, everyone. As Brandon mentioned, my name is Tanisha Hamlin-Johnson, and I'm going to share with you information on ways in which to locate the student service projects in your local area and possible collaboration ideas. Now that you have an overview of the programs that the SSS area administers, let's talk about ways that you can collaborate within your communities. The Student Service Team has developed numerous maps that serve as a visual guide in order to readily identify the states that have particular grant programs and the number of projects in each state. This map shows the distribution of the 85 CCAMPIS projects As you can see from the legend in the lower right-hand corner, the states highlighted in yellow have between 1 to 5 projects. The states in the seafoam green have 6 to 15 projects. In California, the only state in blue has between 16 to 20 projects. The states not highlighted do not currently have any CCAMPIS projects being administered there. This map shows the distribution of the 277 GAN projects. As identified in the legend, again in the lower right-hand corner, the states in the salmon pink have 1 to 10 projects. The states in yellow have 11 to 35 projects. And the state in blue, which again is California, has more than 35 projects. As you can see from the map, California actually has 36 open GAN projects. This third map shows the distribution of the 127 GEAR-Up projects that are currently being administered. The legend in the lower right-hand corner states that the states highlighted in tan have 1 project, the states in blue have 2 to 5 projects, and the states highlighted in red have between 6 to 10 projects. As with the other maps, any states not highlighted do not currently have GEAR-Up projects being administered there. This fourth map is a little different from the previous maps that you have seen. This map is inclusive of all open TRIO projects. Whereas the previous map shows certain individual programs, this map covers EOC, MCNAIR, SSS, Talent Search, Upward Bound Math and Science, and Veterans Upward Bound. The legend in the lower right-hand corner shows the range of the distribution of the number of TRIO projects in each state. And next to the abbreviation of the state, you can see the individual number of the cumulative projects in that state. TRIO development staff has created this interactive story map known as the TRIO Online Interactive Story Map. It is a new and exciting tool for anyone seeking to find and learn about the programs funded by the federal TRIO program. Story maps are being used to convey data and information in a user-friendly, interactive format. The story map harnesses the power of geography to tell the story of the federal TRIO program and to demonstrate the wide footprint of the program. In developing this tool, TRIO had 3 main goals. The first was to show the vast footprint and the distribution of our programs. The second was to convey information in an interesting, interactive, and user-friendly format. And the third was to provide a tool to encourage networking and collaboration. In addition to displaying the geographic distribution of grantees, both by the individual program and for all programs at once, users can read about the main highlights of each program. Also, by clicking on any project site, users can gain access to key institutional characteristics of grantees, including city, state, type of institution, regional location, funding amount, number of participants currently being served, and the size of the institution. Let's take a look at the functionality of the online map. As you can see, the map displays colored circles to indicate the location of active TRIO projects. You can click on a colored point, as you can see here, to get the details of the project, or you can use the tabs on the top to search by a specific program. I will demonstrate both ways to you. So for example, if you were interested in seeing the location of MCNAIR projects, you would click on the tab that says MCN, and the map would then narrow down your search to current MCNAIR projects in your region. If you were in Texas and you wanted to see a project near the Houston area, you can click on this green circle, and it brings up the information for the TRIO program for the Ronald McNair project. So this grantee is located at St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas. It's a private nonprofit 4-year institution, and the total amount given to the grantee for funding as well as the total participants can be seen here. If you were on the main Trio screen and you just wanted to peruse to see where certain projects are and what those projects were, you would just click the circle and the information will come up. So the orange circle shows the Student Support Service Program, and this grantee is located in northern Maine. It's a community college, a public 2-year. It currently receives $234,634 in funding and serves 175 students. We wanted to be able to provide you with a snapshot chart that shows possible collaboration ideas based on program eligibility. This chart merely shows possible relationship between the programs that you administer and the programs administered in the student support service area, depending on the benefits needed for the eligible participants. For example, based on the services provided by the Family Violence and Services Program and the participants that are served there, there is a possibility that those participants may be eligible to receive services from almost all of the programs administered in the student service area. These next slides list the web addresses for currently funded projects. Please feel free to visit these websites to glean any information that you need about projects in your area. I would like to thank you for your time and attention today, and we will now open up the line for any questions you may have, and I will turn the presentation back over to Ms. Catherine St. Clair.
Thank you so much, everybody, for participating, and thank you once again to RITAC for hosting on this wonderful webinar platform. We'd be happy to take any questions that anybody has.
While we're waiting for folks to take a moment and perhaps add their questions into the chat box, I did have a question. I heard earlier in the presentation mention of the fact that there was a program that assisted young people that were in foster care or homeless with housing support services, was it? In between class time or in between class semester sessions, you know, when they're outside of the dorms. Can someone talk a little bit more about that?
Right, so that was in specific, it was regarding the provision in the Student Support Services Program, or SSS. So if a student is aging out of the foster care system or is in foster care and they are in between breaks, be it summer or winter break, there is a provision that would be sent to the department as a request for that student to have their housing covered during those breaks.
That would be a huge help.
This is Eileen Ryan. I would just like to add that that provision is in the regs. However, it's contingent upon the eligibility of the student to participate in student support services, and it's also contingent upon the availability of funds during that time period with the project. Normally, the projects run right up to their dollar amounts for each line item, so it's possible that at that particular time there will not be the monies available to accommodate that issue for a student, but it is a provision in the regulation.
Okay. There's a question about how would programs access these funds, and I assume those are funds for the housing services. How would someone go about accessing those funds?
So those persons would need to be a currently funded grantee, and again, as one of our colleagues pointed out, they would need to use those grant funds, and it may be that they already have it included in their budget. So does need to come out of their budget, that's their annual budget.
Hi, this is Stacy from RIPAC. Just to clarify on that question, like if I were a runaway and homeless youth grantee and I'm working with an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old who's out of school, how would I help that young person access those funds? Who would they go to talk to in order to make sure that they could have provision for housing?
Hi, this is Linda. Hi, this is Linda Bird Johnson. The provision for using a portion of the federal grant under the Student Support Services is that which allows an applicant to choose to use a portion of those funds if they are available to support a student that is currently being served by the Student Support Services program, which would mean that that student meets all of the eligibility criteria for participation in the project. And if the project chooses to try to provide some financial assistance to a particular student in regards to housing, then they would just simply either, as Brendan stated earlier, have included it in their budget and therefore move forward with it, but they would just notify the department that they are using a portion of their budget to cover that cost, and that they have a plan for that, and it does not have any adverse impact on the provision of other services that were included in their approved budget. Did that kind of provide a little bit more context?
Yes, thank you.
For those on the call today that are runaway and homeless youth grantees, and most of the folks on the call are, I was wondering, what would the presenters recommend as far as next steps for them to find out more information about these programs, and more importantly, connect with the right people locally and in their regions to make sure that their clients are taking full advantage of these services? Can you offer some suggestions or recommendations as far as where you would have RHY grantees go for more information and to get connected?
Hi, this is Catherine. There are a couple places that grantees could go for programs that are funded under the federal TRIO programs. The TRIO story map that Tanisha demoed and which is linked to in the PowerPoint presentation is a great place to start, because a grantee would be able to zoom in and drill down to their particular local area and see what particular mix of TRIO programs happen to be funded and where they were located to be able to reach out to them. For TRIO programs as well as Gear Up or Campus or GAN, the other programs, at the end of the presentation there's a link for each program that's a link to currently funded projects under that program. So a grantee could click on that link and it's going to bring up by state all programs that are currently funded under that particular grant program. And that would be another way to see what's funded locally and to reach out and to begin to form partnerships. Does that answer the question?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Waiting for any other questions? Feel free to add these into the chat box. Out of curiosity, what are the reasons why there are certain states that don't seem to be participating very much? Is there a particular reason for that, or is there something we can do in our home states that might not be involved to encourage more involvement?
All of the programs under TRIO are conducted under a competitive process, so I would encourage people in your home state to continue to check the the student service website. I know that there are several programs that will be competitive for 17. They are Gear Up, Upper Bound Math Science, Upper Bound Veterans, MCNAIR, and Child Care. So there will be a number of programs that they could avail themselves. But keep in mind that these programs are all very, very competitive, so they have to pay strict attention to the funding parameters and the guidelines that are provided. For TRIO programs, there are always a number of pre-application workshops that potential grantees or potential applicants can choose to either visit on-site or participate in through the webinar process. So there's some things that you can keep in mind for FY17. Actually, I think the first of those competitions, the Upper Bound program, will actually run the competition late this year. So information on that will be forthcoming in the next couple of months.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions at this time, so I'm going to assume that your questions have been answered for now. Again, I will encourage you to download the PowerPoint, which has some great links to it. Also, it includes that link to that interactive map, and you'll see that Stacy included that in the chat box as well. So if there are no other questions, I want to thank everyone for joining today. I most especially want to thank our partners from the U.S. Department of Education, Tanisha, Hamlin Johnson, Tamika Holly, Catherine St. Clair, Brandon Weber, and the administrator Linda. Thank you all very much for joining. Thank you all very much for presenting. And with that, I will let everyone get on with their busy days and wish you a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.